I never thought a poor miner would teach me the real meaning of love after 20 rejections. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. It was cold, wind biting at my cheeks, my heart heavy with the weight of yet another I'm sorry. Every rejection felt like a dagger to my already bruised spirit. Each word echoed in my mind, spinning like a record stuck on sorrow. I felt a lump in my throat, tears pooling in my eyes, but I refused to let them spill. I stood there, surrounded by a sea of vibrant laughter, my friends unaware of my pain. They were my world: Sam, with his goofy jokes, Emma, who had this infectious smile, and Matt, always ready to lift me up. They were my constant in a whirlwind of heartbreak, but even their presence couldn't fill the void I felt inside. Then, I heard the stories, the strange rumors about Nathan, the miner. They whispered he hadn't smiled in years, that he spoke to the rocks as if they were alive, and that he had an unparalleled ability to find the rarest jewels hidden deep within the earth. Something about him intrigued me. He was a pariah in a town that craved conformity, yet there was a mysterious story waiting to unfold. My curiosity twisted in my gut, leading me to the mine, hidden behind the aging woods. The air was thick with anticipation. As I descended into the darkness, my heart raced. Shadows flickered, and the silence was punctuated by distant echoes. The smell of damp earth overwhelmed me, wrapping around my senses like a shroud. Would I find Nathan? Would he be like the others, indifferent and dismissive, or would there be something more? The deeper I went, the more I felt a connection. My heart thumped loudly, a beacon in the silence. I encountered glimmers of light sparks from the rare gems scattered like stars waiting to be discovered. I felt a sense of awe, a tiny thread of hope pulling at my heart. But then I saw him. Nathan sat there, drenched in shadows, his hands stained with the very earth he worked. He glanced up, piercing blue eyes locking onto mine. And in that moment, everything shifted. My breath caught in my throat. There was something profound in his gaze, a story untold, a depth I longed to explore. His presence was magnetic, and I wondered if maybe, just maybe, he could change everything. But my heart still trembled with fear, doubt clouding my thoughts. Could this humble miner truly hold the key to unlocking my heart? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The air shifted as I locked eyes with Nathan, the strange familiarity of his presence both thrilling and terrifying. My heart raced, a wild drum in my chest, competing with the ominous quiet of the mine. I took a step forward, cautious yet compelled. With every movement, I felt a precarious balance teetering on the edge of me, apprehension wrestling with the desperate need for connection. Who are you? Nathan's voice broke the silence, rough yet gentle, like gravel rolling underfoot. It startled me, I hadn't expected him to speak first. I'm just someone curious, I managed. My voice felt weak, unaware of how to navigate this unexpected encounter. He raised an eyebrow, skepticism mingling with interest. Down here, curiosity can be dangerous, he replied, a faint hint of a smile dancing on his lips. That small spark lit a flicker of warmth within me, dispelling some of the icy despair that clung to my heart. That I know what you mean, I said, my tone dropping. It's been a dangerous few years for me. He nodded slowly, as if weighing my words. I could see the lines of hardship etched on his face, the weight of his life pressing down like the earth surrounding us. My own struggles felt insignificant compared to the despair lurking in his eyes. Why are you here? Nathan asked, his intensity unwavering. That I came to understand, I said, knowing it fell short but wanting to unravel the distance between us. People talk about you, how you find beautiful things down here. I thought maybe you could teach me. His posture softened, intrigue replacing the initial caution. It's not just about finding gems. It's about feeling the earth, listening to its stories. In the darkness, you can discover something beautiful, but you need to be willing to embrace the unknown. His gaze bore into mine, and I felt the weight of his words curl around my heart, wrapping me in a blanket of vulnerability. It was both terrifying and exhilarating, the idea of truly understanding what lay beneath the surface. As I ventured deeper into conversation with him, more of his layers began to reveal themselves. Nathan spoke of the mines, the solitude, and the treasures hidden away, but also of the scars he bore, the painful losses, the emptiness that lingered even amid the shiny stones. Each story chipped away at the boundaries I had erected, and a strange bond began to form, intertwining our paths. But just as hope began to blossom, the weight of my reality crashed over me like a tidal wave. I had thrust myself into Nathan's world seeking solace and wisdom, yet I felt the pull of my own tumultuous life tugging at my sleeve, dragging me back to the surface, the fear of facing rejection again, the gnawing doubt about my worth, the ache for love that had eluded me for so long. Before I could fully process my thoughts, there was a surge of noise above us, a loud clatter, followed by frantic voices. My heart dropped. The mine became a different place entirely. What's happening? I gasped, glancing at Nathan, searching for answers. His expression shifted to worry. It's the project team. They're not supposed to be here. Panic spread between us as the echoes of unease reverberated in the small space. Moments later, I heard them calling out, their voices drawing closer. They shouldn't come down here. It's dangerous. Nathan's voice lowered, urgency lining his tone as he stepped closer. We need to go, but I hesitated, torn between the warmth of this burgeoning connection and the chaos that loomed above. I can't leave. Nathan, I just found something real, something worth discovering. He gazed at me, the intensity of his blue eyes searching mine. Sometimes, what we find is buried deeper than we know. Just then, a loud thud shook the earth beneath us, sending a rush of debris cascading down from the walls of the shaft. My heart lurched in my chest, a visceral reminder of the fragility of our moments. Nathan instinctively grabbed my hand, pulling me toward the exit, but within the jolt, I realized that something had changed. The connection we had forged felt too pure to part from, yet the reality of danger loomed as closely as the riches he had spoken of. As I sprinted alongside him, the echoes of laughter and life above seemed a world away, but the thought of losing this chance for something authentic clawed at me relentlessly. Wait! I cried, skidding to a stop. Please! Can't we? Before I could finish my sentence, the shaft trembled again, and a shower of dirt cascaded above us. Nathan pulled me closer, and in that moment of chaos, everything shifted once more. A startling, unforeseen truth wedged itself uninvited in my heart. The connection I feared to embrace might be all but lost in the tempest above. In that desperate second, I uttered the words I had held so tightly, nearly choking on the fear of their weight. I think I'm falling for you. But the world erupted in muffled noises, and as Nathan's grip tightened around my hand in surprise, I couldn't shake the feeling that our fragile moment was veering toward an unknown that threatened to tear us apart just as it was beginning to unite us. The air thickened with dust as the tremors echoed through the mine, a stark reminder of how precarious our situation was. Nathan's grip tightened around my hand, a lifeline in the uncertain darkness. The panic in his eyes mirrored the turmoil churning within me, but it was also laced with something deeper, an understanding that our time was limited, both above and below. That I can't let you get hurt, he said, his voice sharp but tinged with an underlying softness that sent a shiver down my spine. The urgency of the moment was palpable, yet an anchor of hope weighed heavily in my chest. Please, let me help you out of here. No. I resisted, my heart pounding harder in defiance. Not until you tell me what you felt when I said that. My voice trembled, the last fragments of my bravado cracking under the pressure. For a brief moment, the chaos above faded as Nathan's expression shifted, becoming a mirror of my own bewilderment. You shouldn't say things like that in a mine, he murmured, but his gaze was intense, almost as if he were searching for the truth locked behind my words. Hiding from feelings has made me miss so much, I said, the desperation inside me rising with each breath. I've lived in fear, Nathan, fear that love would elude me forever, that I'd be forever lost in my own darkness. But here with you, it feels different, it feels real. He hesitated, his eyes flickering with uncertainty. And what if it's just a momentary spark? What happens when we leave this place? When reality pulls us back into our own lives? The raw honesty in his voice struck me, exposing the doubts I had tried to claw away. I could taste the vulnerability of the truth between us, and my heart ached at the thought of losing this budding connection just as it had begun to blossom. I stepped closer, ignoring the dust that swirled around us. What if I'm tired of waiting for the so-called right moment to discover what I feel? What if I don't want to hide anymore? I pleaded, the walls of the mine echoing my desperation. Nathan's gaze softened, and in that deepened moment, a flicker of understanding lit his face. Sometimes, the right things find their way to us when we least expect it, he admitted quietly, and for the first time, I saw the hint of a smile tease his lips. But then, the mine shuddered again, more violently this time, the ground trembling beneath our feet. The cacophony of footsteps grew louder, the overhead calls sharpening my fears. It felt like the world above was collapsing, pulling me away from the connection I yearned for. Nathan, we have to go. I cried, panic clawing at my throat as a gust of wind echoed through the shaft, sending chills crawling down my spine. He released a reluctant breath, his blue eyes searching mine one last time. Just remember, he said, his voice heavy with unspoken weight, sometimes the things worth holding on to are buried beneath the noise of our lives. You have to decide what you want. Before I could respond, another jolt rattled the earth. Nathan pulled me toward the narrow passage, our footsteps echoing off the stone walls. But the uncertainty loomed as thick as the darkness surrounding us. The love I was starting to feel was still clothed in shadows. As we raced forward, I felt the lingering weight of my confession hanging between us like a fragile thread ready to snap. The sound of chaos spilled into the cavern, casting a foreboding shadow over the hope that had sparked just moments before. We rounded a bend, and suddenly the air cleared, a shaft of dim light piercing through the murky depths. My heart leaped at the sight, but just as I reached for this flicker of hope, Nathan stumbled, his foot catching on a loose stone. I lunged forward to catch him, fear coursing through me like a live wire. Nathan, hold on. I shouted. He gripped my arm, but the pressure dislodged the rock, sending us both spiraling into darkness. In a flurry of movement, we tumbled down a slope, the world spinning wildly around us. Fear and adrenaline swirled together as I grasped for anything to hold on to. When we finally came to a stop, breathless and disoriented, I lay sprawled against a hard surface with Nathan beside me, our faces inches apart. That I didn't want to lose you, I gasped, heart racing from the chaos and the closeness. He nodded slowly, the weight of the moment heavy between us. You could never lose me, he breathed, a promise laced in uncertainty. But what hovered in the air was the unarguable truth of the situation. We were tangled in a web of fleeting moments, time slipping through our fingers like sand. As we tried to regain our composure, the echoes of the frantic voices above began to fade, replaced by an eerie silence. The absence of sound rang louder than the rush we had just experienced. Then Nathan's expression shifted, his brows furrowing in concern. I think we've gone deeper than we were supposed to, he murmured. His voice faded, realization dawning in his eyes as they narrowed. If they don't find us soon, we might be stuck here. In that breathless moment, a new fear gripped me, a fear of darkness, not just in the physical sense, but the kind that looms in the heart when faced with the unknown. But even as dread washed over me, a strange warmth lingered. I felt closer to Nathan in that moment of uncertainty than ever before. Just as the gravity of our situation settled in, a distant noise began to echo through the mine, a rumble that wasn't from above. I turned to Nathan, who looked equally perplexed, and the first light of understanding began to dawn between us again. The secrets of the mine weren't finished revealing themselves yet. Something lurked in the shadows, waiting to either bridge the gap between our hearts or plunge us deeper into the abyss. Each moment stretched like a taut string, and I wondered if we would find what we were searching for before it was too late. The faint glimmer of hope flickered in the still air as Nathan and I lay on the gritty ground, trapped in a world far below the surface. The distant rumble grew louder, reverberating through the mine, but all I could hear was the slow, steady rhythm of my heart. It synchronized with the unspoken tension between us, the raw emotion thick enough to cut. Nathan. My voice faltered, the weight of all that remained unspoken filling the space between breaths. I could feel the warmth of his presence, strong and reassuring, even as fear clawed at my insides. What if no one comes to find us? He shifted slightly, propping himself up on one elbow and looking deeply into my eyes, his expression a mix of concern and something that felt almost paternal. Then we'll have to find our own way out, he replied, his strength resonating in his words, but what if we can't? I pressed, the doubts rising like an unbearable tide. What if we're stuck here? Forever, he leaned closer, his breath mingling with mine. Then we make forever a place worth being in, right here, with each other. Something in his declaration made my heart flutter, but the somber reality of our situation loomed. I could feel the edges of despair creeping in, gnawing at the fringes of our new connection. What if I hesitated, the words hovering, heavy as a stone? What if this is just a temporary escape from the reality we must face? What if we never get out? Nathan's brow furrowed as if he were weighing the gravity of my despair against his determination. He took a deep breath, his gaze unwavering, as though he could support both our fears with his mere presence. I can't promise you certainty, but I can promise you we'll fight for you to get us out of here, and to figure out whatever this is, together. My heart swelled at his words, but doubt still gnawed at me. So many rejections had built a wall around my heart, how could I trust that this moment, this connection, was anything more than fleeting? The truth I had tumbled into felt profound yet fragile, an intricate web spun in the darkness of our shared fear. Just then, the rumble echoed more vigorously, shaking the walls around us. A chill skittered up my spine as jagged stones rattled above, momentarily drowning out every thought. We don't have much time, Nathan said, urgency creeping into his tone. We need to move. Pushing past the fear that threatened to suffocate me, I nodded and rose to my feet, my hands trembling as they brushed against his for stability. Together, we maneuvered around the jagged rocks, navigating the labyrinthine passages in silence, each footfall heavy with the weight of unspoken emotions. Every twist and turn of the mine felt like both a physical and emotional journey, plunging us deeper into uncertainty. The distant rumbling transformed into a drumming thrum, a harbinger of something ominous, and I could no longer ignore the sinister presence lurking in the shadows. There's something down here, I whispered, glancing back at Nathan. Fear tightened in my throat, squeezing out all articulate thought. He paused, searching the dark beyond, and I could see his eyes reflecting a resolve that steadied me. Well, face it together. Whatever it is, he assured me, and in that moment, I felt an unexpected flicker of courage ignite within. As we continued forward, the air grew colder, and a sudden burst of wind rushed past us like a warning. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched, that some unseen force was closing in. My heart raced with anticipation, the tight grip of fear transforming into something electric, something alive. Then, a sound soft at first, like whispers carried on the wind, then rising into a cacophony of low growls echoing through the tunnel. I froze, and Nathan's hand tightened around mine, steady and reassuring. What the hell is that? I asked, my voice trembling. That I don't know, but we have to keep moving, he replied, glancing back nervously. We pressed on, urgency coursing through our veins, propelled by the instinct to survive. Just as the whispers reached a fever pitch, we stumbled upon a hidden cul-de-sac, a small cavern cutting off the main passage. It was an unexpected refuge amidst the chaos, but the tension didn't dissipate, it only coiled tighter. The whispers ceased, but the ominous feeling remained, and I could hardly breathe. Nathan turned, and in the murky light, something shifted in his expression, an awareness, an understanding. We might not be alone anymore, he said cautiously, scanning our surroundings. Before I could respond, the atmosphere in the cave shifted once more. A shadow moved against the rocky wall, barely perceptible, but unmistakably there. My heart raced as I struggled to identify it. Nathan, did you see that? I stammered, leaning closer to him, our bodies nearly touching as I searched his face for reassurance. He nodded, his eyes wide. "We need to be quiet. It could be dangerous." The air thickened again, suffocating and sinister. The realization that our heartbeats echoed like drums in the ominous stillness sent a jolt of panic through me. Just then, a low growl rumbled from the darkness, echoing through the cavern, raw and unyielding. It was a creature of the mine or a fate yet to be revealed, but at that moment, it didn't matter. My heart, laden with the remnants of our whispered confessions, felt too heavy to carry. I clutched Nathan's arm, the fleeting glow of our budding love flickering with the menacing shadows. We had found something precious only to face what might pull it away, the dire unknown waiting just beyond the light. "Whatever happens," I whispered, tears brimming in my eyes, "I'm glad I'm here with you." He turned to me, a glimpse of vulnerability breaking through his brave facade. "Me too. But we need to be ready for anything." His words hung between us, laden with promise and fear. As we stood at the precipice of certainty and the shadows that loomed, another growl reverberated through the cave. The darkness was closing in, and whatever approached held the power to shatter our fragile connection or fortify our resolve to endure together. The unseen layers of love swirled with the trepidation of what was yet to come, and I held my breath, poised for whatever revelation the darkness had in store for us. The growl reverberated around us, a terrifying echo that sent chills down my spine. For an instant, time froze, and the very essence of fear coursed through my veins, urging me to flee. But I couldn't move. I stood petrified, gripping Nathan's arm, feeling the warmth of his body anchoring me against the encroaching dread. "Stay close," he whispered, his voice a soothing balm against the chaos unfolding in my mind. He began to back away, motioning for me to follow him while keeping his eyes trained on the shifting darkness ahead. As we retreated deeper into the cavern, the sound of claws scraping stone filled the air, an unnerving reminder that whatever lurked in the shadows was drawing nearer. I could feel breath hastening, my own pulse thrumming madly, and yet Nathan's presence radiated a strange sense of calm. "Do you remember the first time we met?" he asked suddenly, his words slicing through the tension like a ray of sunlight through dark clouds. That I found a momentary escape in recollection, his mischievous grin as I caught him tossing the rocks into the clearing, our laughter mingling with the rustling leaves. A tender smile broke through my fear, and I nodded. "It's strange, isn't it?" he continued, his eyes never leaving the darkness. "How life can take us from playful moments to this." That I wanted to share more memories, to envelop ourselves in nostalgia rather than fear, but the snarling interrupted my thoughts, harsh and guttural, followed by a flurry of movement barely seen in the shadows. My heart raced anew. "Focus, Parker, focus," I told myself, trying to root my thoughts in the warmth of our connection. Nathan leaned closer, urgency sharpening his whisper. "If we ever make it out of here, I want you to know that I would have fought through any darkness for you. You've made me understand what hope looks like." His words struck me unlike anything I had ever felt before. We were united not only in this moment of crisis but in something deeper, a shared experience that held the power to redefine who we were. If we survived, perhaps we could forge something real from our entwined fates. The tremors of anxiety still rattled within me, but Nathan's unwavering strength became a tether, grounding me. Amidst the growling, a sudden flash of movement darted across the edge of the cavern, light reflecting off something metallic. It was a faint glimmer, possibly the light from a hidden opening or a piece of forgotten machinery. "Look!" I whispered, tugging at Nathan's sleeve. His eyes followed the glint. "We need to check it out," he said. "It could be our way out." No sooner had he spoken than another growl echoed, much louder, closer, as if the darkness itself had taken shape. My instincts flared, caution fighting against the spark of hope ignited by Nathan's words. Without thinking, I squeezed his hand tightly. Maybe it's a trap," I said hastily, glancing at the flicker of light. "What if, whether it is or not, we can't stay here?" he interrupted, determination igniting in his gaze. "Trust me, Parker. It'll get us to safety." Despite the fear wrapping around my heart like a vice, Nathan's confidence gave me pause. A small part of meth part that had endured so much and was tired of waiting yearned to leap toward that glimmer. With a nod, I replied, "All right, let's go. Together, we edged closer to the shimmering light, every step echoing the silent prayer that hung over our heads, desperate and hopeful. The growling intensified, reverberating through the rock, but Nathan held my hand tightly, pulling me forward as my heart raced, and then it happened. A loud rumble shook the cavern floor, and a chunk of rock tumbled from the ceiling, narrowly missing us. Dust choked the air as I stumbled, but Nathan's grip never loosened. Just a little further, he yelled above the tumult. As we reached the gleaming object, we found it was a rusted leverage tool, half buried in the dirt, a remnant of the miner's labor long past. Next to it lay a jagged opening in the rock, glowing with phosphorescent minerals. The light illuminated our intertwined hands, casting a haunting reflection on the cave walls, the meaning behind it all wrapping around my heart with both terror and an unexpected sweetness. But just as my heart soared at the sight of an escape, the growling erupted into furious howls, echoing through the cavern, blending with the sound of falling rocks. A creature emerged from the shadows, its massive form revealed in the fleeting light, a monstrous silhouette, instinctively fearsome and primal. It stood poised to pounce, raw power humming in its every sinew. Terror flooded through me, washing away the resolve I had nurtured. "Nathan!" I screamed, instinctively stepping back. At that moment, a shadow passed over Nathan, and everything shifted. The flicker of hope we'd held so tightly threatened to extinguish under the weight of this new horror. He turned, eyes locked onto the beast, his grip tightening around the tool as he faced it down. "No matter what happens, we'll get through this," but I was terrified I was losing him in that moment, the reality of our situation crashing down over us like the rock we had so narrowly dodged. The shadows of fear and uncertainty surged again, our connection hanging by a delicate thread as the creature prowled closer. I could feel the world crumbling around us, and the realization gripped my heart. This could very well be the moment where everything shifted beyond the fragile hope we had begun to weave together. The beast loomed before us, a grim embodiment of every nightmare I had ever held deep within, every rejection and fear coalescing into its snarling maw. In that heart-stopping instant, the cavern felt more like an abyss, drawing me into its depths rather than a transient shelter from the chaos outside. "Nathan," my voice cracked, the words slipping from my lips like a desperate prayer, filled with both fear and yearning. The raw instinct for survival surged within me, igniting every cell with adrenaline. But even as dread surged, I couldn't tear my gaze from Nathan. He stood resolute, the tool clutched like a weapon of hope rather than fear. "Stay behind me," he commanded, determination spilling from his words like the drop of a stone into an unfathomable well. Somehow, his steadfastness ignited something fierce within me, a flicker of fire that signaling my heart to stand strong alongside him, yet doubt swirled like smoke in my mind, threatening to stifle the light he offered. I remembered each rejection, the primal way I'd bent and twisted under their weight, reminding myself that I was not worthy of such unwavering loyalty if love, really. But here he was, fighting for us, for something that shimmered like that fleeting light we had glimpsed moments earlier. As the beast lunged, Nathan swung the leverage tool with all his might. It struck the creature's side with a metallic clang, momentarily stunning it and offering us a brief reprieve. The beast howled, shaking the cavern with its wrath, but Nathan didn't falter. He turned back to me, eyes fierce. "Now. We have to push forward." Time became elastic as I surged past him, propelled not just by urgency but by the fierce realization of what was at stake. My heart screamed that I would fight alongside him, not just for survival, but for everything we hadn't yet known. The uncertainty of our fate tangled beautifully with the possibility of something more tangible. We rushed toward the glowing opening, the phosphorescent minerals offering a dazzling escape route amidst the chaos. But the beast regained its balance, its primal howl reverberating around us, drowning out reason as it charged. A tidal wave of fear washed over me, heavy and inescapable, and just as I thought we had a chance, Nathan's shadow flickered under the engulfing darkness. "Keep running," he yelled, but I hesitated, glancing back for the briefest moment. The beast had turned its attention toward him, and a thick shadow loomed as it reared back for another attack. "Nathan!" I cried out, feeling the world tilt dangerously. Without thinking, I pulled at the remnants of courage from deep within my soul and turned back. I couldn't let him face the creature alone. In that heartbeat, I lunged, grasping the old leverage tool as it slipped from his hands, and swung it toward the beast. It connected with a sickening thud, metal against flesh, and the beast swung, claws raking through the air, narrowly missing me. Nathango! I screamed, the heat of adrenaline pooling in my veins. He hesitated for just a second, eyes wide with disbelief, but then the unyielding look returned. He sprinted toward the opening, and my instincts cried out to follow. I plunged toward him, adrenaline propelling me forward as I felt the growl of the creature pulsing behind us like a thunderous warning that we collided at the phosphorescent light, and for a moment, we stood united, panting and exhilarated. But the reality hit me hard. There was no guarantee we would escape unscathed. Keep going, he urged, but another shudder of the cavern sent rocks pouring from above, dust spiraling around like harbingers of destruction. Then, there was a resounding crash. Part of the ceiling gave way, a large stone slab tumbling down clumsy, chaotic, yet carrying the weight of 100 uncertainties. Nathan secured my arm, pulling me forward just as the fracture echoed through the cave. The shadows of collapse neared us. Suddenly, a jarring realization struck me anew, sharp and piercing. What if we don't get out? I gasped, the chilled air tinged with despair. What if? But before I could finish that thought, the rawness of truth began to leak from my heart. This was not just about survival. I wanted to share life, to embrace love, regrets, and all. I wanted to fight shame and rejection, to hold on to the flashes of intimacy that ignited between us. In that tumbling instant of fear and uncertainty, I turned to Nathan. All that was left unsaid between us surged forth like the heartbeat in my chest, an overwhelming need to tell him what he had shown me, even if gratitude felt far too small a word. Promise me we'll fight for this, I cried, my voice faltering for the first time with uncertain hope woven through my words. But Nathan didn't have time to respond. With the beast hot on our heels, it dove for us, the cavern shuddering under the weight of impending danger. The darkness blurred all around, the familiarity between us extinguishing. Lost in the tumult of the fight for our lives, time slowed, and as I braced for impact, my heart full yet shattered, I caught a glimpse of the beast's eyes, wild, feral, and almost human. And in that moment, amidst the chaos, I felt an unshakable sense of clarity. I was no longer defined by my fears. Instead, I could be reforged in the fire of uncertainty and hope, like a miner pulled from darkness to light. But as time snapped back into existence and the world surged forth, the realization settled on my heart like weighty stone. The final breath we shared in that moment might very well be the prelude to loss. As I turned to Nathan, I realized that to love, truly love, was to stand at the precipice of everything, ready to leap even when the ground beneath felt like it may crumble at any second. And just as the shadows closed in on our ending, a low rumble filled the air, not from the beast, but from beyond the phosphorescent glow, a deep echo emanating from the depths of the cave that left me suspended in confusion and dread. It was then I understood, even amid the desperate moments, the heart still beats, love tugs at hope, even when faced with the sound of crumbling rock. As the vibrations from the cave deepened, reverberating through my bones, I fought to shake off the paralyzing grip of fear. Nathan had pulled me by the wrist, dragging me toward the shimmer of light. Behind us, the beast roared, echoing through the cavern like the chorus of some dark symphony. My head spun with uncertainty, and for a fleeting moment, despair whispered its haunting promises, keep moving. Nathan urged again, his voice rising above the chaos. I nodded, pushing the tumult in my mind aside, and we stumbled forward. But every ounce of strength was siphoned by the beast's breath, its hot, rancid air engulfing us as we dashed toward our only hope of escape. Just as we reached the opening, reality struck me like a lightning bolt. I could feel Nathan's grip loosen, and a surge of panic clawed at my chest. My stride slowed, glancing back in time to see the beast narrowing in on us. Its eyes were locked onto Nathan, the predatory focus sending shards of ice into my veins. Nathan! I shrieked, but my mouth felt dry, the words caught in my throat. The connection forged between us felt fragile against the onslaught of our reality. That he paused, his expression a blend of determination and vulnerability. You can do this. Go. His voice was raw, resonating with the urgency of our situation, but my heart screamed at me to stay, to push back against the tide of inevitability. I took a breath, reining in desperation, forcing myself to look into his eyes, those deep, unwavering pools of concern and courage. "You won't die for me," I shouted, the affirmation pouring out like a torrent. "Alice, please." In that moment, I made a choice. Each rejection I had faced throughout my life had woven a tapestry of doubt, but now that very fabric unraveled. I sidestepped, hoisting the leverage tool with newfound resolve, a buoy of hope against the tempest of fear. The cavern trembled again, the ground beneath our feet shifting and angry, but I stepped forward with clangor in my heart. I faced the beast, shimmering eyes and jagged teeth, raw primal fury stoked by desperation and a twisted ache for survival. While Nathan pressed against my back, I swung the metal tool toward the creature's snout, connecting with a grating shriek. It recoiled, eyes flaring wide in shock. For a heartbeat, I felt triumphant, exhilarated. But that victory was fleeting as the beast's roar surged back, powerful and defiant, sending ripples through the cavern's rock. The space around us was collapsing, rocks tumbled from above, each crash a reminder of our looming doom. The exit shimmered dully in the distance as the beast lunged again, jaws snapping mere inches from Nathan's side. "Run!" I cried, my own voice ragged with imminent fear, as I shoved him forward, a push fueled by all my pain and the years of doubting myself. Stumbling around a corner, we found ourselves in an even narrower tunnel, the rock scraping against my skin, the darkness thick like a fog. I felt Nathan's breath at my side, grounding me, warding off despair. With each step, I reminded myself of the promise in my heart, the flicker of something long held, no longer bound by rejections and shame. Just as we rounded the bend, his hand faltered in mine, and he pulled me to an abrupt stop. We faced a fork, a decision point alight with uncertainty. One direction led deeper into shadows, where I could hear the beast's fury building in intensity, while the other whispered of escape, filled with the essence of fresh air filtered through entangled vines. "Nathan," my voice wavered, burdened by the weight of every choice we had made. "What if this is the wrong way?" He turned to me, a flicker of panic tainting his usually steadfast expression, and squeezed my hand tighter. "We can't go back, Alice. We have to keep moving forward," but forward filled with trepidation, uncertainty manifested like shadows closing in. The tightening silence echoed our fears. What if we wouldn't see the sun again? Then from the darkness came a low, rumbling growl. I whirled, terror knotting my stomach as the beast's outline dimly flickered in the shadows, its eyes bright as night. "Nathan!" I shouted, but something within me buckled at the thought that we might not survive, that our story might end here. In the thick, pulsating moment, the earth beneath our feet trembled violently, throwing us off balance. That was it. There was no denying it any longer. We were trapped, and if we wanted any chance of hope, we needed to risk the last vestiges of our fear. "Go left," I gasped, and without waiting for him to nod, I pulled him in that direction, plunging into the unknown. As we ran, every minute felt like an eternity, and my heartbeat thrummed in sync with the fear consuming me. Just when I could no longer silence the growing dread, Nathan stopped dead in his tracks. "Do you hear that?" His voice was steady, but the question quivered with the weight of concern. The howl of the beast had faded, swallowed by silence, and a soft flickering light emerged from deeper within the tunnel, casting ethereal shapes against the stone walls. Before I could process what it meant, the flickering illuminated something incredible. It wasn't just the shimmering light trickling toward us, it was the sound of whispers swirling around, as if the very stone was recounting stories of those who had come before. Yet amidst the breathtaking moment, a thought sparked in my mind, sharp and piercing. It felt all too familiar, something tugging insistently. A gnawing sensation, an instinct too raw to ignore. "Someone else is in here," I murmured, my heart racing not from fear, but from an undercurrent of anticipation. As Nathan's eyes brightened with realization, an inkling of hope mingled with profound uncertainty clawed at my gut. The flickering light morphed into a faint glow as we pushed forward cautiously, each step reverberating with an electric charge of possibility. What lay in wait could be salvation, or a newfound darkness that would tear at the strands of what we had temporarily built between us. And just as the light intensified, spilling into the corridor like a memory seeping through a lock. I felt the unbreakable thread of tension rise between us. I demanded to understand, in that heartbeat of desperation, what truth lingered beyond the echoes of rejection and doubt, but there it was, a figure cloaked in the ethereal glow, whose presence radiated an inexplicable familiarity. I froze, dread coiling back in surrounding shadows, while Nathan's grip faltered at my side. The moment stretched like a fragile web, and I realized, as the identity solidified before me, that our upcoming choices would challenge not only our survival but the very essence of who we were when stripped back to the bone. "Who are you?" I gasped, my voice echoing against the stone walls, as the true weight of our journey slammed into the depths of my heart, a murmur of what had been lost and what could still be reclaimed lingering just out of reach. The figure stepped forward, the flickering light enveloping it like an embrace, revealing a face that could have been drawn from a hidden part of my memory. My heart lurched, recognition crashing over me like a wave. Where had I seen that face before? I blinked hard, the shadows dancing in my mind. "Alice?" the figure whispered, voice laced with a mixture of warmth and pain. I felt the world tilt beneath me, the ground unsteady with realization. "Riley?" My voice trembled as if I was waking from a long, suffocating dream. She had been the one person who understood me in a lifetime of relationships that felt disconnected, as if I were speaking a foreign language while others chattered fluently in silence. Her absence had carved a void so deep that I often pretended it wasn't there, sometimes even reliving our last moments in agonizing detail. Nathan's hand tightened around mine, anchoring me, as Riley's presence washed over my heart with both joy and trepidation. I thought you were gone," I managed to say, the weight of loss pressing down like the cavern's low ceiling. "That I came back for you," she replied, stepping closer, her eyes shimmering with a blend of hope and sorrow. "I've been searching, Alice. I knew you'd find your way here, but how could it be? So many threads have been left unraveling since she vanished into the night fog, spiraling my emotions into a chasm of confusion. Despair and longing danced dangerously at the edges of my psyche, tangled up in reminiscences of our shared laughter and long conversations that had felt so effortless back in our world, a world stripped away by lessons of rejection that seeped into our bones. How? The simple word was weighted, heavy with everything left unsaid. "I learned to follow the light, even if it led me into darkness," she offered, a soft smile flickering across her lips. "I realized after I lost you that love isn't a straightforward path. It's not just about who you want to hold, but who you want to be when you are holding them." Her words wrapped around me like a lifeline, momentarily distracting the thundering echoes of the beast lurking just outside our sanctuary. Nathan looked between us, uncertainty flaring in his gaze, the intensity of our connection pulling taut like a bowstring. "We need to move," Nathan urged, drawing in a deep breath, shaking off the weight of our moment. "Whatever brought you here, Riley, we can talk later." "The beast I know," she interrupted, her expression shifting to one of fierce resolve. "I can help. I've spent time here, learning how to navigate the darkness," and just like that, a sliver of hope began to squeeze through the tightly knotted tension. Could we truly find our way through this? It was a fragile flicker, yet it was bright enough to chase back the looming shadows. "Okay," I breathed, feeling the gnarly knot of fear and uncertainty loosening ever so slightly. "Show us the way." Together, we turned our backs to the beast, to the uncertainty that awaited us behind. Riley led us deeper into the shimmering light, her confidence radiating against the darkness. With each step, Nathan's presence beside me felt more grounded, more of a tether than I had ever realized. My heart thrummed with the possibilities of rekindled connection, fractured bonds imitating the uneven path ahead of us, but as we ventured further, a tremor tore through the ground, sending waves of chaos bouncing up the walls. The faint growl of the beast echoed in tandem, reverberating through the cavern like a threat we couldn't ignore. Nathan stumbled but caught himself, keeping his hold tight around my waist. "We need to hurry," he whispered urgently. "That sound is getting closer." As we raced forward, dim shadows gave way to clearer outlines, revealing fragments of old mining relics abandoned long before our stories intertwined. It resonated deep within me, a reminder of what had been left behind, a past I couldn't escape. Memories of rejection bubbled to the surface, those faces, those voices, urging me to retreat, but Riley turned back, her gaze piercing through the walls I had built around my heart. "You have kept going despite everything," she said softly. Remember that. Her words lit a fire within me, urging me onward. I no longer needed to dwell on past failures. Instead, I could choose to move forward into all that was unknown and terrifying, or into a possibility brimming with potential. With renewed courage, we pressed on, our senses heightened, weaving to the rhythm of the cavern. I could feel the monster's growls reverberating through the walls, stalking us like a predator ready to pounce at any moment. Yet there was solace in the shared weight of our journey, a familial bond ignited in the shadows, but just as we approached a wider chamber, a stabbing pain shot through my heart, the intensity of everything we were running from accumulating suddenly into a singular scream of inevitable truth. What lay ahead could be salvation, or perhaps our greatest challenge yet, because in that moment of doubt, I felt the sheer force of Nathan's hold falter as we crossed the threshold. That he stumbled, letting go of my waist, and as I turned, whether in instinct or betrayal, I saw a glint of ferocity in his eyes as he raised the shimmering tool, ready to confront whatever was lurking in the dark void that expanded before us. "What are you doing?" I shouted, panic spiraling through me. But the beast's roar erupted anew, deafening and wild, an overwhelming anthem of fury that rang in my ears. In that split second, everything I thought I understood shattered like glass. Nathan's intentions, our newfound connection, the darkness that swirled around us like a storm. And as I took a step forward, the magnitude of what was about to unfold gripped my heart, the ground trembling beneath my feet as I braced myself against the oncoming storm. What would be the cost of this moment, and could we withstand the truth of who we really were when faced with the darkness lurking within? The darkness whispered back, growing palpable, morphing my nightmares into reality. I understood then this wasn't just about survival, but a journey into the very depths of our souls, where the beasts of doubt and rejection awaited us all. "Stop!" I shouted, but it was too late. As Nathan's eyes shattered and the beast roared, we would soon find out if love could outlast the chaos of the shadows. The tremors surged through the cavern like a heartbeat, pulsing with electric urgency and threat. I stared wide-eyed at Nathan, the shimmering tool clasped tightly in his hands, betraying a vulnerability I hadn't recognized until that moment. The shadows loomed, thickening as anticipation coiled around us, merciless and cold. "Nathan, please," I implored, stepping forward, reaching for him. "Don't do this. We have to work together." He hesitated, a fleeting shadow of doubt dancing across his visage. The glint of steel contrasted sharply against the desperate darkness, revealing his fear, his fracture, and yet, an undeniable determination that felt tangible upon the air. I have to protect us," he murmured, but his voice shattered, faltering and quivering like a leaf caught in a storm. "Protect us from what?" I shouted, my heart pounding a relentless rhythm. "Because right now, this is tearing us apart." The cavern had transformed into a tightrope strung across a chasm of chaos, and I could feel the abyss beckoning. Riley, silent until now, stepped forward, her calm demeanor grounding like a beacon in an ocean of tumult. "Nathan, listen. We've been lost and afraid for too long. This isn't about confronting whatever we think is waiting for us. It's about facing ourselves together." The beast's growl echoed in response to an angry roar that ripped through the air, underscoring the truth of her words. I could feel the darkness swirling, rushing like wind through leaves, hissing against the stone walls that enclosed us. "Together," Nathan repeated, his voice barely a whisper, but within it lay an unmasked sense of longing, maybe even for redemption. He lowered the tool slightly, uncertainty flickering in his gaze. "Together," I echoed, my own heart racing, filled with fierce determination. "We can face this. We can face everything." Riley's hand found mine, and I felt an instant warmth flicker to life, an energy that rekindled the bond one thought had been lost forever. Love isn't defined by singular fights or acts of bravery, it's how we come together in moments of fear. It's about trusting one another, but as if in response to our budding unity, the ancient rock beneath us quaked violently. Massive chunks of stone broke loose from the ceiling, littering the ground with debris and echoing a low rumble that threatened to swallow us whole. The light surrounding us flickered and waned, leaving us shrouded in deepening shadows. "Nathan!" I cried out as he staggered backward, the glimmer of the tool slipping from his fingers and crashing against the ground. Time slowed as I lunged for him, grabbing his arm, pulling him away from the relentless pull of the darkness that threatened to claim us. "We're going to be okay," I breathed, wrapping my arms around him. The warmth of his body ignited a resolve deep within me, drowning out the ghosts of rejection that had haunted me for far too long. We were not defined by past failures, but by our ability to rise when faced with overwhelming odds. His features softened as he looked down at me, and I recognized a flicker of something in his eyes, vulnerability softened by honesty. "I only wanted to protect you, Alice." I didn't know what to do. Riley stepped closer, her presence unwavering. "And in protecting her, you nearly lost her. We have to trust each other as much as we trust ourselves." The cavern's growl faded momentarily, aligning with the stillness of our emotions, lingering between us like an unsolved riddle. And just as hope dared to germinate, a blinding light erupted from the depths of the chamber, a painful brilliance that forced me to shield my eyes. Shadows warped and cried out, fluttering around us like wounded birds. I felt Nathan's grip tighten on my shoulders, and the light felt both threatening and illuminating, revealing parts of the cavern, fragments of an ancient mural plastered against the walls, depicting swirling figures entwined, forever locked in a dance of anguish and redemption. "There's more to this story," I realized, the words tumbling unbidden from my lips. "We're not just running away from the beast. That darkness, that fear, it's part of who we are." Riley nodded, her gaze fixed on the mural. "It's a cycle. We have to confront our fears, or we'll be trapped in the darkness forever." But as I turned to Nathan, a fear bloomed in my chest, twisting into something darker. "What if it's not just the beast we need to confront?" I whispered, my voice cracking with the weight of uncertainty. What if facing each other reveals something we aren't ready for?" Before he could respond, the intense light drew closer, enveloping us as if time bent and preparations for a confrontation twisted together into fate. The cavern trembled, vibrating with our unspoken truths as the beast roared anew, mingling with the pulse of our hearts, inching us ever closer to an inescapable destiny. In that moment of raw vulnerability, under the pressure of the encroaching shadows and the uncertainty of the path ahead, I felt the ground shift beneath my feet. It was a heart-stopping reminder that love, whenever real and raw, could just as easily burn and break as it could heal and uplift. And as the radiant light collided with the dark, ripping reality asunder, the question loomed ominously above us, unyielding and unwavering: were we truly ready to face the beasts lurking within, or would our hearts shatter against the weight of unspoken truths? The dust settled slowly, like the remnants of a battle that had yet to be fought. I stood at the precipice of an uncharted reality as the light pulsated, cloaked in an intensity that demanded my attention. Nathan's presence was a tether, grounding me, yet I could feel fear radiating off him, merging with my own. The beast, a menacing shadow at our backs, was more than just a creature, it was an embodiment of everything we had hidden and feared about ourselves. "Together," I repeated softly, the word resonating through the heaviness of our shared moment, a fragile thread stitching us to the hope that still flickered within. I was tired of running, tired of feeding the shadows that lived in my heart. For too long, I had believed that love would elude me, and here I was surrounded by those I cared for most, faced with a choice larger than my fears. In the heart of chaos, I turned to Nathan, striving to look beyond the surface, into the depths of his soul, beneath the rugged exterior hardened by isolation and heartbreak. "What if the only way out is through our own darkness?" I asked, my voice trembling with unexpressed anxieties, still hovering around the edges of doubt. His gaze met mine, a tempest of conflicting emotions swirling within those blue depths. "I don't know what lies within me, Alice," he admitted, his voice strained but earnest. "But I can't pretend it doesn't exist. Not anymore." I nodded, feeling my own burden resonate with his confession. "And I can't run from this moment." Stepping closer, I knew the shadows granted no more sanctuary, they were upon us, and I had to be brave enough to confront them. "We can face this together." The beast's growl vibrated with renewed fury, and the light beckoned to us as though it held truths we were yet to discover. I grasped Nathan's hand again, feeling the warmth and fear mingle, pushing me onward into the unknown. Riley's steady voice broke through the tension. "This isn't just about love. It's about acceptance of ourselves and each other, unearthing the hidden treasures within, allowing love to flourish where darkness had thrived. As if her words summoned a wave of clarity, I felt something deepen in my chest, vulnerability intertwined with strength as I prepared to embrace my truth. If we want to emerge from this, we have to stop fighting each other, I said decisively, looking between them. We must confront that which we fear most together. The light pulsed again, a surge of energy weaving through the cavern, and the beast's growl crescendoed into a roar that echoed around us, an angry guardian demanding we face our innermost fears. The shadows danced, swirling around the chamber, and amid the whirlwind, I caught a glimpse of what we were running from, a mirror reflecting my own fears of being unworthy. For all the rejections and heartache I've faced, I realize now that every single time has led me to this moment, I said, letting the words spill out, feeling lighter with each confession. I feared being vulnerable, that opening my heart would only lead to more pain. But it's not just about that. It's about the courage to embrace both the light and the dark within us. Nathan exhaled sharply, pulling me closer. The weight of my past consumes me too. I hid from it out of fear, thinking I needed to bear it alone. But hiding only allowed the shadows to grow stronger. I see that now. We all have our scars, Riley added gently, placing a hand on each of our shoulders, creating an unbroken circle of understanding. The beast within us reflects our deepest fears, the ones we've carried for too long. But facing it together gives us power. In that moment, amidst the looming beast and the encroaching shadows, I sensed a shift. The light began to glow brighter, shining with the essence of our truths laid bare. The very fabric of the cavern pulsed with the rhythm of our hearts, an orchestra of vulnerability and strength, anchoring us to the power of our collective resolve. Let's step towards the light, I declared, finding a newfound conviction, grounding me against the chaos thrumming around us. Let's show the darkness that fear can't consume us anymore. I squeezed Nathan's hand, feeling the tension ebb away, replaced with something radiant. Riley mirrored our unity, and together we took a step toward the ever-brightening glow. The beast roared, but this time, the sound felt less like a threat and more like a call to arms, a desperate plea for acknowledgement rather than a vicious attack. We were not battling a creature, we were confronting the internal struggle that had haunted us all. As we moved closer to the light, something shifted, the shadows receding, the weight of our fears dissipating into the air. We can do this, Nathan murmured under his breath, the words an incantation forged from the deepest core of hope, igniting with possibility. And in that sacred space, as the chamber filled with light, I felt the raw warmth of love, a force greater than rejection, a fierce belonging that ignited everything I had ever longed for. The shadows shrank, caving to the brilliance of our connection, a triumphant testimony to the universality of our human experience. Embracing my lingering fears, those wolves that had once chased me, I stepped forward together with Nathan and Riley, shining against the twilight of uncertainty. As we crossed the threshold, plunging into the light, I took solace in the knowledge that the darkness would always be present, but never again would it hold power over me. Because love, in its truest form, is not just about the glowing moments of joy, but also about holding space for the fears that dwell within, the acceptance of oneself and of one another. In the end, we weren't just miners searching for hidden gems in life, we were treasure chests ourselves, filled with deep uncharted beauty waiting to be discovered. And in the embrace of that clarity, a raw truth echoed between us, embodying the realization I didn't know I needed. Sometimes the greatest discovery lies not in the light we seek but in bringing light to the darkness that resides within. As we paused at the cusp of all that lay ahead, I turned to look back one last time at the abyss we had conquered, feeling Nathan's reassuring presence at my side, and in that silence, my heart swelled with gratitude. I had once feared love would elude me, but here, in this moment, I felt the warmth envelope us, a love fierce enough to break through even the deepest of shadows. And it was in that realization that I whispered softly, "Together we can do anything." And with those words, I understood, finally, that this journey had only just begun.